take a generation or two, and then let's see how it goes. We don't know how to do that. But we have to do that again because we have to take the long view. But I don't think it's going to be some big, huge, formalized movement. I think it's going to be through. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
Because this is one of the places where I can take myself back and discipline myself to be patient. It's 3, it's 12, it's 120.
Right.
We can change the world that way. It'll take longer than we want,
Yes.
but not as long as we fear.
Yes, I think that's right. So two thoughts. There's kind of two levels of action in the world. There's institutional action and personal action. And the American the white American middle class kind of way of thinking is very personal. So I think personally and I act personally. And then there's another way of thinking that is becoming more common now in kind of common discourses. No, you don't think about individuals, think about systems. So essentially think institutionally, think about patterns. Mm-hmm. And so you need to think institutionally, and then you would think the answer is, and then you need to act institutionally. Like we need to change these systems kind of from the top down. It strikes me that, first of all, it's very hard to do that because when you try to act institutionally, you get bound up in all those systems that you're critiquing. And you often get bought by those systems. And so it's a lot easier to say than to actually do. I'm going to step into this big, huge system and change it. It's more likely to change you than you will change it. It seems to me that God's redemptive move in history is actually involves thinking institutionally but acting personally. And what does personal mean? It doesn't mean individual, because persons aren't actually individual. There's no such thing as an individual. We are constituted by relationship with other people. And that's where this 3, 12, 120 idea comes, which, as you know, I didn't make those numbers up. They're the numbers Jesus used. But I did notice.
Duly footnoted. We got you.
I noticed what Jesus was doing, which is, he has the inner circle of 3, Peter, James, and John. But then he's got the 12 that he calls. And there's maybe a wider circle around that 12 who travel with him, including many women, of course. And then in the upper room at Pentecost, there's 120. And the basic idea is all you need to change the world is 120 people. That's not many. You can know everyone's name in a group of 120. You can't know in a group of 1,200. But it actually, at the core, is even smaller than that. It's this tiny little group. And yet, if that group thinks institutionally, that is, thinks in terms of many generations, thinks in terms of essentially the whole world, like what do we want to change in the world and the systems of the world, which I think those first apostles did, it's enough. And in fact, it's the only thing that works, because then I started to look at this pattern and you realize every single creative endeavor has this pattern. So there's nothing that people do, no matter how big it eventually gets, that doesn't start with 3, 12, and about 120. And then you realize, I don't know, Jesus has just tapped into like a fundamental law of how the world, I think, is meant to work. And then anyone else who manages to be effective, even at huge scales, it comes back to these tiny circles.